Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fiscal year 2027-2028 Preproposal Conference. We are going to get started, but before we do that, I need to go over a few housekeeping rules. All microphones will remain muted throughout the presentation. For anyone requiring the use of transcription, that is closed captioning, please go to the top right corner of your screen and click More with those three dots above the word More. Then click Language and Speech, then Show Live Captions. Also note that the transcription is individualized and will only appear on your screen. The Q&A feature has been disabled, so everyone enter all your questions in the chat and the responses will be provided at the end of the presentation. If team members are unable to give an on-the-spot response to your question, a response will be provided in the next addendum, which will be addendum number 2. All applicants must ensure that they are checking Bonfire periodically for all addendums until the final addendum is issued on or about November 19th. And with that, we will get started with the agenda. So for today's agenda, we're going to begin with our staff introductions, and I will go first. My name is Michelle Brizzi. I am the Procurement Division Director here at Department of Procurement and Material Management. Next, I will turn it over to Vanessa for her introduction.
Good morning. I am Vanessa Calderon with the Department of Procurement and Material Management as a contract analyst.
Next, Karen Ventura.
Hi, I'm Karen Ventura. I'm also a contract analyst in the Department of Procurement and Material Management.
And next, Verinda Vyas.
Hi, I'm Verinda. I also work in DPMM and I assist the CCFP team.
Thank you. And I'll switch over to Team NCS, starting with Marla.
Good morning. My name is Marla Sametsky. I'm the Cross-System Prevention Manager with Neighborhood and Community Services, and I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Miner. I'm a Cross-System Prevention Coordinator with the Prevention Unit in NCS.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you to all of you for joining us today for the Preproposal Conference. I'm going to walk through the agenda. So our first item we'll be going through is the CCFP RFP program model, followed by the RFP funding categories and technical narrative, the applicant resources. We're going to walk through the RFP forms, which will also include the budget forms and attachments. And with that, I will turn it over to Marla, who will go through the RFP program model.
Hey. Okay, so to talk about the Consolidated Community Funding Pool, we want to set the stage for what's central to the CCFP. So as you can see from the slide, the CCFP provides support for services that are part of the county's vision and strategic plan for human services. The CCFP is designed to help build public and private partnerships and to improve coordination and collaboration in all regions of the county. We also intend for the CCFP to strengthen the capacity to provide human services to individuals and families in need through effective and efficient use of our resources, of county resources. And it's also to serve as a catalyst to community-based agencies, both large and small, to provide services and leverage outcomes. The CCFP at its core is a competitive funding pool. It's to provide funding for those identified community needs. Funding is not intended to provide administrative support or administrative foundation for organizations. And it's also to lessen the dependence of county funds over time, which allows community funds to be available to benefit more community organizations. So a bit of history about the Consolidated Community Funding Pool. It's actually been around for almost 3 decades. So it's existed for approximately 28 years. It was established, as I just mentioned, as a competitive funding process for health and human service organizations. And it was developed, programs are developed and administered by those community-based organizations. It is a 2-year funding cycle, and it's comprised of approximately $9 million of funding from the county's general funds, from the Community Services Block Grant, and from the Community Development Block Grant. This is a community-led process in which residents and the CCFAC is the Consolidated Community Funding Advisory Committee. They develop and recommend funding categories, and awardees are selected by a selection advisory committee that we refer to as the SAC, which is a resident SAC. So residents of Fairfax County form the SAC to review the proposals, to score, and then to provide recommendations on funding recommendations. The CCFAC or the CCFP is also a process that involves many other stakeholders. That includes the Board of Supervisors, county staff, as I mentioned, community residents, and representatives from various boards, authorities, and commissions. So many of you have, as I mentioned, it's been in existence for 30 years. And so many of you are familiar with the CCFP. And so I do want to talk a bit about the evolution of our program model. So while staying true to what is central to the CCFP has continued to evolve. In past cycles, starting in fiscal year 23-25, the CCFP was bifurcated into a 2 RFP process. And this is where we moved emergency food and emergency housing into a separate RFP, still existing within the funding pool. So you'll remember we used to talk about RFP1 and RFP2. RFP2 was that emergency food and housing, and then the other RFP part of that was affectionately referred to as the traditional, and that included the literacy education of those categories: literacy education, financial stability, food and nutrition, housing. Those were not emergency. Health, positive behaviors, healthy relationships, social networks. So that had its own funding, its own RFP within the funding pool. We have continued to enhance our strategies for the selection advisory committee for the recruitment to make sure that we had a wide array of residents from all areas of the county, all backgrounds, as part of that selection advisory committee. And then we've always had a continuous review of programs that are funded through the CCFP to ensure critical elements of those county needs are served, and to continue to review the categories. And then we have always had and continue to have CBO, community-based organization feedback. So that was our prior CCFP, and we've continued to evolve. So you'll note that no longer in the CCFP RFP is emergency food and emergency housing. Those now have been transitioned out of the CCFP, and they are going to be directly administered by Neighborhood and Community Services. And so we anticipate that that RFP for emergency food and emergency housing will be released sometime in mid to late November. So the current CCFP is what I had mentioned that we called those traditional, those 7 categories, and there's only one proposal. So there's one RFP, excuse me. So one RFP, regardless of funding amount. So whether you're requesting a proposal of less than $50,000 or more than $50,000, it's only one RFP, one technical narrative, regardless of funding, the funding amount that you're requesting. So I mentioned those categories. So as I mentioned, CCFP continues to be resident driven. We've had 2 surveys this year looking at the categories. We had a public hearing, And you'll note that those categories, if you've applied in the past recently, that the categories have not changed from the fiscal year 25-26 cycle. There's been some minor tweaks to an outcome statement or an additional service category example or a word, but the categories have remained consistent. So the FY27-28 categories are the same as the categories from last cycle. And those are the financial stability, food and nutrition, health, housing, literacy, educational attainment, positive behaviors, healthy relationships, support community, society, and networks. So I have, though, on the screen, we're highlighting for you 2 categories within these funding categories, and that's the food and nutrition and housing. And these are just to highlight them to note to you that, again, these are not emergency. So for food and nutrition, perhaps you have a program where you're addressing healthy eating, or you have a supplemental backpack program. Maybe you have a weekend program for youth, and there's a food and nutrition education component, or there's an education, nutrition program that you have, a family market, mobile market initiatives. Those are just examples of what might be in that food and nutrition, again, not emergency. And then same for housing. There's a housing category here that is non-emergency. So you can consider, for example, various types of supportive services, such as case management, maybe a home buyer education program. So that's just a bit of a recap of the funding categories. You'll see examples of service categories within the RFP. All right, next in the RFP, you will note in the technical narrative, the introduction talks about the frameworks. So key frameworks for your technical narrative and for your response. There's a focus on equity and systemic impact. You'll notice in the instructions of the technical proposal that applicants are asked to watch the Becoming One Fairfax video. It introduces you then to the key concepts of the One Fairfax policy, and we ask you also to review that policy. The One Fairfax policy is a policy that works to ensure that all communities, especially those with fewer resources, are supported and with the opportunities that they need to thrive. You're also asked to consider upward mobility and consider the upward mobility framework. And there's a link in the RFP to the Urban Institute, and that will help to expand on the framework. But essentially, the upward mobility framework is about upward mobility for people and communities, and that's the ultimate goal. It's also important to recognize that upward mobility requires racial equity. Racial equity means that ensuring that race does not predict a person's chances of success while working to improve outcomes for everyone. And achieving this requires focused strategies to uplift those with the greatest disadvantage. And it requires that we go beyond providing services and we focus on transforming policies, institutions, and systemic structures. One Fairfax, as I've mentioned, is a joint racial and social equity policy of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and the school board adopted this in November of 2017. And with the CCFP, we are committed to this policy. This policy commits the county and the schools to intentionally consider equity when making policies or delivering programs and services. And the policy is a declaration that all residents deserve equitable opportunity to succeed regardless of their race, color, sex, nationality, sexual orientation, religion, disability, income, or where they live. So as you respond to this technical narrative, we ask that you draw upon these frameworks and prioritize the use of census level data over zip code data, because the latter, the zip code data, can obscure inequality. And we have some resources to help you as you build this into your response.
Thank you, Marla. Next, I'm going to go over the data resources. In the data resources posted on the CCFP website, you'll find links to a wide variety of data from Fairfax County Public Schools, and in a few cases from the Commonwealth of Virginia. We encourage you to explore these resources and draw on them as you develop your proposals. In the data resources, you'll also see links to the Urban Institute's Upward Mobility Framework, which Marla just covered. The Upward Mobility Data Dashboard provides what are called mobility metrics for 24 predictors that are strongly associated with upward mobility. Each predictor falls into one of 5 pillars, which are rewarding work, high-quality education, opportunity-rich and inclusive neighborhoods, healthy environment and access to good healthcare, and responsive and just governance. We encourage you to explore this dashboard further. The data resources tool is organized by category, and each page includes several illustrative statistics that highlight the broad range of data that may inform proposals. The examples that we highlight in this resource are not prescriptive and should not be interpreted as direction toward a specific intervention or service. On the right in this slide, you'll see an example from the positive behaviors and healthy relationships category. 14% of adults reported poor mental health in 2022. That's interesting. Let's explore it more. If you click the blue text here, the link will take you to the source, which in this case is Fairfax County's Strategic Objectives Dashboard. Which you can see here. If you scroll down in the Strategic Objectives Dashboard, you will find the data story. For example, we just looked at a poor mental health statistic. Here we can see the statistic related to adults reporting their mental health is not good. If we click, it will bring us to an additional view which disaggregates that data. In this case, with trends by year, it compares Fairfax County to Virginia and the rest of the US and shows poor mental health prevalence rates by census tract. If you come up here to main page, the links to the main page, you can see other data points where you can explore disaggregates. As an example, if we pick here uninsured residents under age 65, we can see that this data is disaggregated by race and ethnicity, gender, and age. And we also can have trends from 2019 to 2024. So we do encourage all of you to please go to the link on the CCFP website and explore the data resources tool to inform your proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. So as you can see, there's been some changes that we've already shared. We have shared that we have transitioned to remove emergency food and emergency housing from the CCFP. And we've also provided a number of updated data resources to assist you in your application. This is all based on feedback that we have heard over our continuous process improvement cycles, and in particularly this past year where there were some recommendations made. One of the recommendations was to improve the technical proposal, the technical narrative section, to be more in plain language. And so we've heard your feedback and we've continued to make a process improvement in this regard as well. We've endeavored to make the application easy to understand and concise, hence why there's only one RFP regardless of the funding amount. And I'm going to briefly touch on each component of the narrative, of the technical narrative. So you'll note that there's a program abstract. This is your opportunity to summarize your proposed program. How will this program be implemented? What are the goals and objectives? How does it align with the One Fairfax policy? Again, tying it to those frameworks. And then in each of the 4 sections of the technical narrative, answer all of the questions in that section. So for example, for the demonstration of need, there are 3 questions in this section, and that ask you to identify the program's necessity based on the specific data, the issue, the need. how does your project address inequity and the gap that your program will address or help the community? For the approach section, there are 4 questions in this section, all aimed at the description of your program and how it will be implemented. So how is your program, what is the approach of your program to address that demonstration of need? What are you going to do? Note again the importance of accessibility of programs and services to serve community members with diverse cognitive, behavioral, physical, and sensory abilities. The next component of the technical narrative is the outcome section, and there are 4 questions in this narrative section. So again, answer all 4 questions within that section, within your narrative description there. Specify your program outcomes. How are they measured? What is the anticipated impact on the population or the community that you serve? And then there's the organizational capacity. And there are 3 questions in that section, which is for you to describe your organizational structure and the management of the proposed program. How will you deliver that program? So these are all updates to the technical narrative section based on feedback that we had heard to make it more plain language, more understandable, and then again, weaving in the priorities of the community and the frameworks that we have mentioned today.
Okay, thanks, Marla. I'd like to highlight some important information in the solicitation. Although the CCFP has 3 funding streams, mostly contributions from the county's general fund, as well as some CSBG and CDBG dollars, you are only applying to the CCFP, so it's 1 application. And then the specific funding type of an award would be determined after the selection process. Applicants must be nonprofit organizations with 501c3 tax-exempt status established by February 20, 2026. And while offers may be located outside of Fairfax County, the population served by the proposed program should reside in Fairfax County, the city of Fairfax, Clifton, Herndon, or Vienna. Okay. We are only allowed to answer questions about the solicitation through an addendum to the RFP, and that's so that the information we provide is available to all offers. Please email your questions to the DPMM CCFP email address, or you may post them in the vendor discussion portal in Bonfire. The last day to submit questions is November 12th at 2 p.m., and then a final addendum will be issued by November 19. Addenda are posted in Bonfire, and the Bonfire system sends out email notification of each addendum to those who are registered. However, we advise you to check back periodically to make sure you're aware of any changes to the RFP or clarifications regarding the solicitation. All issued addenda must be signed and submitted with your application. Okay, a reminder that proposed programs should only address no more than 2 of the 7 CCFP funding categories. And we only accept applications through Bonfire. You may not drop them off in person or send them by email, fax, or regular mail. If you're having any technical issues with your submission, we ask that you contact Bonfire support by email or through the portal. And then we've also included some helpful links here with technical support. And then finally, the deadline for submission is December 8th at 11:30 p.m. That is a hard deadline. And we've included a checklist to help ensure that you've included all required information or elements of your application. And then I'll turn it over to Vanessa, who will go over the resource manual.
Thank you, Karen. We recommend reviewing the resource manual thoroughly as updates were made this cycle, and we're providing here just a brief highlight of some of the changes. Under special provisions, Section 7 contract insurance provisions, 7.2a on statutory workers' compensation and employers' liability insurance, there was language added on possible exclusions to the requirement. The language under 7.2e automobile liability insurance was revised. 7.6 was revised from 5 years to 2 years. And Section 8 indemnification, the language is updated to our most current standard. Both sections 32 for Community Services Block Grant and section 33 Community Development Block Grant were revised to current guidelines. And then there was an addition of section 42 regarding forced and indentured child labor prohibition. The general conditions and instructions to bidders, as well as the federal contract terms and conditions, were updated to the county's most recent version. And we wanted to also highlight and note here that the CSBG, the Community Service Block Grant Priorities Chart on page 45, was revised and replaced as part of Addenda 1. And let's see if we can pull it up here. There you go. And so this is already part of the resource manual that was updated in Bonfire for this specific page. And now back to Karen, who will review the RFP forms.
Thanks, Vanessa. Okay, I'll start with Form 2. So all program applicants will complete one Form 2. Here, only programs that have never received CCFP funding should check the new programs. That was clarified in Bonfire recently through an addendum. Again, no more than 2 categories for proposal. And then we ask that you provide us with 2 references from funders of your organization. The funders can be federal, state, and local governments, may include Fairfax County and the CCFP, foundations, corporations, and philanthropic organizations. You'll provide us with the contact name and email for each reference, along with the length of time of funding, and then we'll reach out to the reference for performance information. Please note that letters of support are not references for the purposes of this solicitation, and there's no place to submit letters of support. I'm sorry, letters of support are not references, and there's no place to submit letters of support with your application. Okay, all applicants will estimate the number of clients served by the proposed program who meet the CSBG income eligibility limits. And that's the 200% poverty guideline referenced on page 44 of the resource manual. And then next, you'll check if you're willing to accept CSBG funding as part of your CCFP award if it's offered to you. And note that accepting CSBG funds does come with additional reporting requirements, federal terms and conditions, and monthly reimbursement of expenses. Proposals are not given any special consideration or advantage by indicating a willingness to accept CSBG funds. So we do ask that you carefully review the CSBG awarder requirements on pages 14 and 15 of the resource manual before making your decision. And then if you indicate that you are willing to accept CSBG funds if it's offered in your award, you'll need to complete attachment 8 of the which is a subrecipient risk analysis. And I'll be going over all the forms later, the attachments later. Okay, next you'll indicate the program type, whether it's a human service program or administration of affordable housing project. And then finally, you'll indicate which region or regions of the county where the proposed program's client population reside. And there's a map on page 29 of the resource manual that shows the 4 regions, and it should help you with this. Okay, next I'll go over Form 3, which is program outcomes. Okay, so you will complete a separate Form 3 for each program outcome, and there is a maximum of 5 outcomes per program. You'll include a brief description of the service, and that's 2 to 3 sentences. And then you'll choose whether or not this outcome was from the list of standardized outcomes and indicators that's included on Exhibit A of the RFP, or if it's one that your agency developed. You'll briefly describe the measurement system and then the outcome indicator. You'll estimate the total number of individuals and households that the proposed program will serve in each of the fiscal years. And then an estimate of the number and percentage of individuals and households that you expect to achieve the outcome of the program. And those can be different for each fiscal year. Okay, and then back to Vanessa for the budget forms.
Thank you, Karen. And the budget forms were provided in an Excel format from Bonfire, when programs are ready to submit their proposal, the budget forms must be uploaded in the Excel format as well. All applicants are required to use the budget forms provided to respond to the cost proposal portion of the RFP. All monetary figures related to the proposal should be stated only on the budget forms or cost narrative forms. There are 4 budget forms on this Excel document. Form 4, which is the program budget, Form 4A, program personnel budget, and Form 4B, program budget justification, and Form 5, estimated program revenue, which are accessible through the tabs at the bottom of the page there. Forms are program specific and must correspond to the cost of operating the proposed program as opposed to organization-wide figures. Form 4 is the main budget worksheet, which includes columns for fiscal year 2026, 2027, and 2028. If your program has current CCFP funds, all 3 fiscal year columns must be completed. If the program is new to the funding pool, only enter items in fiscal year 2027 and 2028. Please note, the file includes hidden formulas and will automatically calculate totals. Additionally, the worksheets are linked, allowing information to automatically transfer from one worksheet to another. As an example, the program name at the top of Form 4 will carry over to the other forms, such as Form A, B, and 5. If we type ABC program, then it will populate on the other 3 forms. In order to ensure the integrity of the data, cells in white are locked and will not allow you to make changes. For example, the personnel cost sections on Form 4 is locked with the information being automatically calculated and transferred from Form 4A. If you attempt to make a change to a protected cell, you will receive an error message. Data can only be entered in the yellow cells. Looking at the program personnel budget on Form 4A, specifically the justification section, programs can enter employee rates and hours projected towards the program for each position. As Verinda is demonstrating here, she's entering Ann Smith, Program Manager, $25 per hour at 120 hours for the program year. Going back to Form 4, costs entered into the direct and indirect cost lines will automatically transfer from the main budget to Form 4B. The justification section, applicants, should explain each proposed budget line item for which CCFP funds are being requested. At the bottom of Form 4B, ensure to answer the question, if the program is currently being funded by a source other than CCFP, explain why CCFP funds are needed. If funded in the previous cycle and the amount requested represents an increase over 5%, please justify the requested increase in funds. On Form 5, which is the estimated program revenue form, applicants should briefly describe the 3 types of proposed leverage resources. We have cash resources on top, non-cash resources in the middle of the form, and volunteer information at the bottom. Please remember that these figures must be program-specific as opposed to organization-wide leveraging. One component of the form I'd like to point out is the resource status column, which is column G on the spreadsheet. There is a pull-down list for programs to identify the status of the proposed resource. There are 6 options to choose from, including pending submission, if you are working on submitting a grant request, pending response, the application was submitted and awaiting a response, and fundraiser, if there is an upcoming fundraising event planned, and so forth. Under the volunteer section at the bottom of Form 5, professional and non-professional volunteers can be listed. Professional volunteers are volunteers who work in their professional capacity. The rate for each professional volunteer is determined by what they would normally charge. For example, if you have a lawyer who volunteers 20 hours per year at the rate of $100 per hour, the value of this individual's volunteer time is $2,000 for the year. It should be noted that the value of volunteer hours row for professional volunteers must be manually calculated using their determined rates. For non-professional volunteers, the form will automatically calculate the total value of non-professional volunteer leveraging based on the number of hours submitted and the current independent sector rate, established rate for volunteer time. The justification sections must be completed for all forms. And now back to Karen.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. I'll go through the attachments now. There are 7 required attachments. The first requires you to attest that you've read and understand the required and non-negotiable contract terms. So you'll go through here and then sign. The second is the Fairfax County Business Classification Schedule. You will need the last 4 digits of your taxpayer or employee identification number for this one. You'll check one classification type in step 1 and then the ownership type in step 2, and this could be more than one. The certification of financial solvency will require your board chair's signature as well as that of your executive director. And then this form also will require your unique entity identification number, which was formerly the DUNS number. Next is the Virginia State Corporation Commission registration information. If you have your SEC identification number, you'll list it here, or you'll check one of the other applicable statements about your organization. Attachment 5 requires your certification about debarment, suspension, or exclusion from government contracts, procurements, or programs. This form also requires your UEI number. And then next, you'll disclose if you've given anything of more than nominal value to a public employee or official with procurement responsibility. And then if you do check that, number 2, then you would need to complete this section here. Okay, the last required form is the cyber insurance questionnaire. You'll download this form from Bonfire and then type your responses as a Word, or your download as a Word document, and then you can type your answers right on the form. So the first is asking if your program electronically collects, transfers, or maintains protected health information, and that's defined here. If you answer yes to that one, then you'll let us know if you're considered a HIPAA covered entity. We ask if your program requires the electronic collection, transfer, maintenance of protected identifiable information, and that's identified here. Okay, so CCFP reporting requirements do not require the collection of PHI or PII. So we're asking that can your electronic records be modified to ensure that this protected information is not collected? But if you're unable to avoid the collection of PHI or PII, we ask you to circle the approximate number of records that you maintain or collect, and then your nonprofit size, as well as the gross revenue of your organization. Attachment 7 is optional for those who have trade secrets or proprietary information in their program that they would like to protect. So all proposals the county receives from this solicitation are subject to the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. So you'll indicate on this form if you do have information that you'd like protected, what it is, the page, section and page number in your proposal, and then the justification. Please note that you cannot request to have your entire proposal protected. And then finally, if you did indicate that you are willing to accept Community Services Block Grant as part of your funding, then you would complete this attachment, the subrecipient risk analysis and compliance record. So in step 1, you'll complete the identification information. Please note that the DUNS is now the UEI, the unique entity identification number. You'll answer the questions, yes or no as applicable in section 2. And then part 3, you'll include the documentation that they're asking for or explain why it's not applicable to your organization. And then finally, you'll execute the form. So that wraps it up for the attachments, and I will turn it over to Michelle now to go over the timeline.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the procurement timeline, and this cycle we decided to include this slide to help applicants understand the timing from once their proposal is submitted to award, because we usually get questions later on, when are we going to be notified of our award? So once your proposals have been submitted in December, from December 3rd or the 8th, whenever our deadline is, administrative processes occur here at DPMM. And for those 3 weeks, we're getting the proposals ready and getting things in place for the SAC review process, which will begin the week of January 13th, and it lasts through March 31st. So you see that it's a lengthy process because we receive lots of proposals. March 31st or thereabout, the Selection Advisory Committee, also known as a SAC, will present to DPMM a list of recommended programs for award. Once we receive that list, we then in turn in April work collaboratively with Neighborhood and Community Services to prepare what we call a not-in packet. And this not-in packet or NIP is then presented to the Board of Supervisors. And what it includes are all the names of the programs that have been recommended for award. We also provide the board with a brief overview of the selection process, talking about, the different programs and how much money was awarded and so on and so forth. After that process is done and the county's budget has been adopted in May, we cannot make notification prior to the county's budget being adopted because we have to ensure we have the dollars first. So after the budget adoption, we will then notify applicants of their award. So you will receive a notification letter via email telling you that you have received an award, or for those who did not or who were unsuccessful, rather, you will also receive an email indicating such. So that you will receive around May. May through June, what is happening? So once you receive that award documentation, we move into the next phase, what we call negotiations. And that's where we're going to meet with you, discuss your program, talk about your budget, talk about your outcomes. We're going to prepare all the documents needed to put your final contract together for execution. Also in May, latter part of May, we will also look at scheduling orientation with new programs. We also invite existing programs that are also awarded to sit in on orientation as well. And from May through June, we're also putting the final pieces of the contract, getting the contracts finalized and getting everything set up for execution. Come July 1st, that's when your contract is initialized. That's when your work begins and you start getting funding to begin your work. So hopefully this timeline will provide you guys with a pretty broad picture of what the process is. And this will wrap up our pre-proposal, the presentation part of the pre-proposal conference. We will now begin our question and answer sessions. So I will wait for Verinda to pull up the question in the chat, and she will read the questions while the CCFP team will provide you with responses.
All right, thank you so much, Michelle. And just to reiterate, as was asked and answered early on, audio and video features are turned off for all participants. So just to reiterate, please enter any questions you have in the chat for them to be addressed. There was a question asking about the program abstract being limited to 800 characters and a concern that all the information requested would not be covered in that amount of characters, if someone wants to address that.
Sure. Did you say Karen? Do you want Karen to answer that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, it is limited to 800 characters. I don't know
I believe, Karen, I think that should be 800 words, not characters. Is that correct, Marla? Because 800 characters seem very small in terms of brief.
I believe it's 800 words.
800 words. And we will reflect that in addendum too. And Verinda, I need you to read the entire question. Okay?
Okay.
Verbatim.
Will do.
Thank you.
The next question is about technical narrative, question B1. So it says technical narrative question B1 asks applicants to include a timeline that displays major tasks, assigned responsibility for each, and outlines the completion of each task by month or quarter during that contract period using year one, month one, quarter one, etc., not calendar dates. Is this only required for new programs, or is it required for programs currently in operation as well? What is the exact grant period, and when does it start?
Okay, so that's two separate questions. So the first one on technical narrative, Marla, would you like to answer that?
Sure. For
on
the first
timeline.
Sure. For the question on the timeline, whether it's only required for new programs or if it's required for programs currently under operation, it's required for all applicants. Everyone applying is required to submit a timeline, regardless if you've been previously funded previously or this is your first time. Everyone answers by providing a timeline.
Thanks, Marla. And in response to the question on what is the exact grant period, the exact grant period begins July 1st, 2026. That's fiscal year 27. And the contract award is for 2 years. So that means it will end June 30th, 2028. 2027, sorry, that's fiscal year 2028. Next question, Verinda.
The next question is about the exact grant period. So what is the exact grant period and when does it start? Did we cover that?
Yes.
Okay. And then someone from Fairfax Fish wanted to ask about them specifically. Fairfax Fish provides emergency financial assistance for housing, so rent, security deposits, etc., and utilities payments. Under which RFP will these programs be under, CCFP or NCS?
Marla?
If you are applying for emergency food or emergency housing, that is not a category in this Consolidated Community Funding Pool RFP. So anything that is emergency food or emergency housing has been transitioned out of the CCFP and will be part of a new RFP issued by Neighborhood and Community Services.
All right, thank you. The next question is, can we submit proposals for more than one program?
Karen?
Yes, you can. So there is no limit to the amount of proposed programs an organization can submit. You do submit them separately in Bonfire, and there's a way to name them. It would be like alternate proposal 1. And if you could please make sure to put the name of that proposal, just so it's easier when the SAC is reviewing. And then also the organization documentation that you have to include, like the Form 990 and the audit statements, the financial audit statements, those you only have to submit once per organization if you're submitting multiple proposals.
Next question.
Right. The next question is there a link to the Bonfire portal? Want to ensure the correct program/site is used. Thank you.
Karen?
I'm sorry, did you say?
Yes, Karen.
Yeah, okay. There is on the CCFP website, also in the on the CCFP website, there is an application packet, and there's a link to the Bonfire. We can also, I guess, should I put that in the? I can put that in the chat, I guess, too, if that helps people.
And we can also list it in the addendum, because all these questions, we will provide the answers again on the addendum. So the link will also be there.
Great. The next question is, how well versed are evaluators on the intersection between upward mobility and One Fairfax approach?
Marla?
All of the SAC members, so everyone who will comprise the SAC team, will also receive an orientation, an overview, and training on the concepts and this CCFP process overall, to include the frameworks and the same links and information that bidders receive.
And Marley, do you want to include the technical advisory committee will also be knowledgeable of the frameworks and the equity One Fairfax approach?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a technical advisory committee. We didn't discuss their role in this pre-proposal conference, but the SAC, the Selection Advisory Committee, formed by residents, is also assisted by the Technical Advisory Committee, or the TAC, which is subject matter experts from the county. And so they are very knowledgeable on these concepts and frameworks and human services. And so they are also a support and part of that process for the evaluations. Discussions.
Great, thank you. The next question is, are these manual updates in the portal now if we download a fresh copy, or do we need to download each update?
All updates are done through an addendum. We've already released addendum 1. So after this pre-proposal conference, there will be another addendum, addendum number 2, coming out. I'm not sure the date yet because we try to collect as much questions as possible along with responses to publish. So everything that we've discussed here today will be placed on addendum 2, and then all other questions that come in via email or through the bonfire portal will be compiled and placed on addendum 2. It is incumbent upon the applicant to check bonfire periodically. Staff will send a message through bonfire when an addendum has been released. So you have to make sure you're checking your spam, your junk email periodically to ensure that you're receiving these notifications of the release of the addendums.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the requirement for the program or initiative to continue past the grant period?
There is no requirement because the contracts are for only 2 years. Once the 2-year period is over, that's the end of the contract. You do not continue beyond that point. You will wait and once again apply for the next award cycle.
Thank you. The next question is, there seems to be a slight difference between what is listed as a required doc or attachment on the RFP and the bonfire site. So, for example, one mentions needing a list of board members while the other did not. Which guidelines should we follow?
You should follow the guidelines of the solicitation because that is the public recorded document. And if there is discrepancy, staff will go back and look at bonfire to ensure that all the required documents in the solicitation are also listed. And there is in bonfire along with the ability for you to upload that document. So the solicitation is the document that you need to follow those guidelines. We will make any corrections to bonfire to conform to what is in the solicitation.
Thank you. And the next question asks, can you put multiple regions? I believe this is in reference to regions being served as asked on Form 2.
And yes, yes, you can. So you would check the regions in the county where where the proposed program's client population lives. So if it's all 4 regions of the county, you can check all 4. If it's just, 1 or 2, just check the ones that apply.
Great, thank you. And the next question asks, what is the fiscal year?
I assume the question being asked, what is the fiscal year? It's the new fiscal year pertaining to this award cycle, which will be fiscal year 2027, which will begin July 1st of 2026.
Okay, thank you. And someone asks, we received a grant in previous cycles, did not get funded for 25 to 26. In the budget form, can you confirm that they should zero out the actual budget 2026 columns?
Vanessa?
If you were not funded in 2026, then it should be zero out. If you were funded in 2026, then that would be included in the budget.
Great, thank you. If the next question is, if my organization submits multiple applications for different programs, do we need to fill out each of the required forms for each application, or are some of the forms only submitted once per organization?
Karen?
So the forms that are for, I guess, the required documentation, like the audit, your Form 990, some of the attachments, those you would only need to submit once, even if you have multiple proposals.
Okay, great, thank you. And then this is a similar question, just a clarification again. If the program is not currently funded by CCFP but has been in the past, do we only fill out 2027 and 2028 for Form 4 under the current budget forms?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. The next question is, can you walk us through the outcome form using a hypothetical example, but going through the funding category outcome statement and service examples on pages 4 through 7 of the RFP? Would we want to do a walkthrough or?
So I believe she's asking the entire Form 3. Can you pull up Form 3?
Yeah.
And we can do it collaboratively with NCS and try to keep it as simple as possible, like Marla, like using a food program or something like that. You want to take it first or you want me to go first?
You can go first. I'm reading what they're asking.
So funding category outcome statement and service examples on pages 4 through 7 of the RFP. So maybe I can pull that up instead as well.
Yeah, but I need the Form 3. So
okay.
The boxes you'll need to complete, starting at the far right at the top, you're going to put in the outcome number. If it's one of one or one of many, you'll indicate that in those boxes. Next, you're going to state your organization name and the name of the program. In Section A, what we're asking you is to tell us the service that is being provided. For example, if you're providing food to clients, you're going to provide food 3 times a week to 50 clients or 100 clients, whatever, right? I'm just keeping it as simple as possible. So you're providing food 3 times a week to clients. Then your outcomes. So you're going to look at the list of standardized outcomes. Chances are there will be a standardized outcome for food relating to food. You're going to select that outcome. You're going to state exactly as it is in B in the form, what it says on the outcome sheet. If a standardized outcome is not there that fits the service that you're providing, you're given the opportunity to give us your agency developed outcome. You're going to write what it is there. Then in C, you're going to tell us what type of measurement system you're using to measure the outcomes. You're going to explain your measurement system in detail to show how it is measured for the outcome. Then in D, the indicators. Here you're going to tell us the impact, so the outcome, what's going to happen. So you give these people food, how is it going to impact their lives? Are they, because you give them the food, they're no longer hungry? And I'm just keeping it basic and simple, right? Marla, you can jump in at any time. Then in E, you're going to tell us, you're going to project how many, and this is based on your program service, your benchmarks, whatever data you use to give you these projections, how many individuals you plan to serve, and how many households you plan to serve for fiscal year 27 and for fiscal year 2028. Both years can be the same number, only you would know that. County doesn't know how many individuals you serve. You're going to go down to section F, and then you're going to tell us of the total individuals, the total households that you have projected for fiscal year 2027 and fiscal year 2028, how many of those will achieve your outcome that is stated in B. So how many of those individuals will get the food, and how many of those individuals, and how many of those households will also achieve that outcome of receiving the food. Now, from time to time, programs tend to overinflate their numbers. And what I mean by this is, put 3,000 numbers, yes, I can do this, and it wows the SAC, oh, they're serving a lot of people. Then you get awarded a contract, and let's say you have not received 100% of the award that you requested. We will negotiate, and we negotiate your numbers down, and it comes down to 2,000. Halfway through the year, when we are looking at your reports, you only can serve 500 people. So I say this so that programs, please consider and take into consideration the numbers that you're putting in this sheet. Because if you're going to come halfway down the first year of the contract and you can't even meet your projections, then that becomes a problem. You're not in compliance with the contract, and it does not bode well for you. Okay, so please look at these numbers very carefully. Is there anything you want to add, Marla?
You nailed it.
Okay,
I'm just
so
gonna quickly, Michelle, this is Exhibit A, and this is in Bonfire, and this is all the list of the outcomes, the standardized outcomes and indicators, just so you know you have that information.
thank you. And we also gave you examples of the indicators that you can use. Next question, please, Verinda.
So the next question asks, what is the guidance on range of award amounts? What is the maximum award amount?
There is no range on award amount this cycle. There has been no change to the basis for awards. The SAC will review, and if you're recommended for award, we will continue to use the formula that has been used for many cycles that includes your score as well as the amount you requested, and also a budgetary formula. So there is no maximum award or no minimum award that we can give you.
Great, thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, can funds be used for capital equipment such as playground equipment?
We will provide a response in the addendum.
And next, for DEI tools, is there any suggested specific tools to address DEI?
So you can use any tool. I'm assuming this question is referring to data resources. And so we have provided an excellent list of data resources that you can draw upon. It's not exhaustive, so you may have other data resources that you use to address the, what's in the demonstration of need, what are the inequities, and how your program will address those inequities. And so we've provided a slew of data resources that you can use to answer that question. And for your specific question of specific, we don't have specific, we've provided a very comprehensive list, but you may know of others that are not included. We included ones that would help you to look at the vulnerability index, to look at the strategic plan, census level data. So those are the tools that we offer for your resources, and you may have additional.
Great. Thank you, Marla. The next question asks, is there anything exceptional involved in terms of data we have to provide, such as service area statistics, etc.?
We will address that in the addendum. Give us some time to think about it.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, is the budget and cost narrative a part of the 17-page limit?
No, it's not. It's mainly for the technical narrative.
Great, thank you. The next question is about the organizational chart. So it says, when it comes to the organizational chart, do we include the whole organization or only those who are involved with the program described in the proposal? If the latter, should we only include individuals who are directly a part of the project, or should we also include staff who provide indirect support? So for example, staff who assist with reporting and administrative tasks.
That one we will collaborate on and address it through the addendum.
Great, thank you. The next question asks, does rapid rehousing fall under the housing category of this RFP, or does it fall under emergency housing?
Do you want to take that, Marla?
Sure. So if rapid rehousing is emergency housing, there's no emergency housing category in this RFP. So if it's an emergency housing program, rapid rehousing, but if the program you are proposing is emergency food or emergency housing, those categories are not in this RFP.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question asks, can you please discuss the level of management required on the grant? So narrative, financial, and data reporting requirements if awarded.
I'm trying to understand the question when they say the narrative, financial. From a top level, what will be required after being awarded in terms of reporting, you will be required to provide quarterly reports to the county, which will include demographic reports, a quarterly program service activity report, which outlines progress in terms of meeting your projections based on the services that you provide. So this is our way of tracking to see the trends if you're going to hit your target at the end of the fiscal year. You will also provide us with expenditure report based on the expenses in your budget. And also each quarter, depending on the type of funding you receive, you would either be requesting quarterly advances or monthly reimbursement if it's federal funds, or a combination of both. Now, in terms of additional reporting requirements for those programs receiving federal funds for the Community Services Block Grant funding, in addition to those reports that I just listed, they will also be providing us with a narrative each quarter, answering questions, specific questions, as well as backup documentation for the expenses for each month. And this is all have to be in line with 2 CFR 200. At the end of the fiscal year, those same programs will also complete a annual demographic data form for the state, the Commonwealth of Virginia. So in a nutshell, those are all the reporting requirements. In terms of monitoring, you will be subjected to monitoring by the county, which will include a site visit where we actually come out to your program, ask questions, inspect your program, and so on and so forth.
Great, thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, if we have lost our login information for the bonfire portal, what is the best place to reach out for access? And I think Karen's.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat. It's support.bonfire@unisolutions.com. That would be the email that you would ask that question to get back your login information.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karen. The next question asks, please clarify the difference between the food and nutrition category here and the upcoming RFP from NCS for emergency food.
Marla?
So we will, this food and nutrition, so think of, as I mentioned during the earlier discussion, food and nutrition that is not emergency. So you might be doing nutritional education programs, you might be having a mobile market, summer, fall, winter kind of mobile market, backpack program, food and nutrition that are not emergency in nature, an emergency food program. So I cannot speak to the upcoming emergency food RFP because it hasn't been released yet, but in this RFP, it's not an emergency food program. As we've shared earlier, the former category that was emergency food categories that were emergency food and emergency housing have transitioned, those two categories have transitioned out of this RFP. So those categories, as they were distinct before, remain distinct. And the current food and nutrition, similar to the last cycle where we had the same category of food and nutrition under what was at that point called RFP1, is the same. So think of, again, backpack programs, and this is not an exhaustive list, but gardens, healthy eating, nutrition education, again, mobile markets, backpack programs are just a few examples that would fall under food and nutrition that are not emergency in nature.
Great, thank you, Marla. This next question, I'm not 100% sure what it's asking. It's referencing, it says technical narrative outcomes questions 1 through 3, 4 is question, I think maybe they meant to refer to a specific question here, is question the form 3 in the attachment sections, and we just answer 2, 3, and 4. So I think they're maybe asking, is question 1?
I'm not going to make an assumption as to what they're asking. What I would suggest is that they submit the question again through Bonfire or through an email, exactly what they're asking, and then we can address it through the addendum.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, is there a maximum request amount and what is the average award? So I think we discussed. Yeah.
Yes, I've answered that prior, but I'll say it again. There is no maximum request amount, and I cannot tell you what an average award is because that varies from cycle to cycle, depending on the number of proposals that have been awarded and the total requests that we have funded. So I'm not able to give you a specific number on an average at this point. I can give you based on this current cycle, an average through the addendum. I can provide that answer, but there is no maximum request amount.
Thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, is there a limit on the total award amount across all CCFP programs that can be made to a nonprofit?
No, there's no limit. I'll say that again. There's no limit on the award amount that is made.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And based on the last grant cycle, how many proposals do you anticipate this year? Is there a limit to the number of proposals per organization? And they also ask, please send the link to data resources in the chat, which I believe Sarah already did. And I can also pin that for everyone's convenience.
Okay, so the first part of the question, based on last grant cycle, how many proposals do you anticipate? So based on the last grant cycle, we received a total of over 120 proposals. Now, everyone on this call know that this cycle, things are maybe a little bit different based on what's happening in our economy and so on and so forth. So I cannot predict if we're going to exceed 120 proposals, maybe. Who knows? I won't know until December. Is there a limit to the number of proposals per organization? There's no limit to the number of programs per organization that you can submit.
Thank you, Michelle.
And I just want to also add that the data resources, you will find them also, the PDFs, both on the webpage, but in Bonfire. You will find them in Bonfire. It's in the document section, I think, Michelle.
Yes.
Or Karen, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you will find them there as well.
Okay. Thank you, Marla. The next question is again about the emergency housing. So they're asking, would you please describe what is meant by the term emergency for the upcoming NCS RFP and describe how that differs from what you are seeking in this RFP?
Okay, so for this question, I think Marla has answered it twice. So you will need to refer to the addendum for the answer.
Okay. And the next question asks, is there a cost associated with joining Bonfire?
No, it's free.
Okay. Thank you. And then the next question asks, for the budget forms for currently funded programs, for FY 2026, we would fill in with data from our budget or our best estimates, not actual, since it is not complete as of now, especially since they are a January through December fiscal year organization. So I can read the question again if
No,
that
I'm
would
reading
be.
it. It's okay. I believe the estimates they're referring to their organizational budget, right, for fiscal year 2026. So I would assume that you would, since you don't have all that information, you would have to use estimates. But for the CCFP part of it, you would put the exact, because you have that information, the exact budget.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And the next question says the program is restorative justice that involves, it says but I think they meant both the victim and offender. Should I count both as total individuals served?
If you're serving both, then you would be counting both as individuals served. Based on your question, we're assuming that your program is serving both the victim and the offender. So those are two different services that you're providing. So yes, you would be counting both as individuals served.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. And the next question asks, can you provide the link again to the Urban Institute report referenced earlier in the presentation? I believe that's the link Sarah sent, yes? Or is that a different link that we can provide?
That's the link. That's the link to the data resources, which would include links to the Urban Institute. And I believe that link may also be in the Urban Institute framework link may also be in the technical narrative. I have to go back and look. But that the link that Sarah put is the link to the data resources that we've been referring to today.
Okay, great. And that message from Sarah should also be pinned for easy access. The next question asks, are funds allocated by zip code serviced as in the past? Where can that list be located for these fiscal years?
Marlo. I think he's referring to RFP2, the old RFP2.
I think so. So are the funds allocated by zip code serviced as in the past? Where can that list be located for these fiscal years? I believe, Cameron, you are referring to what was RFP2, which was emergency food and housing. There were zip codes associated with that, and that's not this RFP. I think that's what you're referring to. But you can feel free to email our DPMM email address if you have another question about it, but I'm pretty sure this is about the other RFP, not this one from the past.
Thank you. And the nex question asks, given the federal government's hostility towards DEI and the fact that federal funding is included here, how do we balance meeting Fairfax's DEI requirement against the risks of taking federal funding with those items in writing?
That response will be provided through an addendum.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And the next question asks, you mentioned not funding administrative cost. Is this the same as indirect costs? What about personal benefits, tax, etc.? Is that allowable cost?
I'm not sure what exactly administrative costs, what is she referring to? Where was that discussed? We'll address that through the addendum. Let's take a look at that again.
All right, thank you. The next question asks, do all grantees have to meet the income eligibility guidelines on page 44 of the resource manual?
What is page 44? Would have to refer to it. Is that the CDBG?
I think that's CS. I think it's CSBG. Let me look.
The CSBG chart that Vanessa discussed is page 45, if that is what they're referring to. Oh, okay.
That's for those, that's page 44. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
Okay, so that's for programs that serve clients that meet these guidelines. It doesn't mean that you will be getting CSBG funds. We just want you to identify if your program serve clients that meet these guidelines. And if you do, and you would like to accept federal funds if you're awarded a contract, then you would indicate that and proceed with completing the attachment 8.
All right, thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, is the organizational chart part of the 17-page limit?
No.
Okay, thank you. The next question is about question 6 of Form 2, so I can pull that up for everyone so that we can look at it together. The funding categories asks applicants to estimate the percentage of clients who meet various CDBG income levels, extremely low, low, low/moderate. Should applicants provide a breakdown with a percentage for each income level or a single percentage that includes all clients who meet the low income level and less than?
Can you scroll down on the question, please?
Yeah, it's just question
in the
6.
chat box. In the chat box.
Oh,
I can't. Oh, never mind. I got it.
Okay.
Good applicants. We'll address that through the addendum as well.
Okay. And then it says question 3 of the demonstration of need section in the technical narrative form asks applicants to identify gaps in existing services? Do applicants describe gaps in terms of the applicant's program or in the community and speak to how the applicant fills that gap?
That question we received through email, and it is already posted on the addendum. So once the addendum is released, you'll see the response.
Okay, great. And someone's asked, please repeat what needs to be in the abstract as we now have 800 word limit versus 800 character limit.
Please pull up the Form 3.
Okay.
The Form 2, rather.
Form 2, I can share that here.
Let's see what we're asking of the applicants to do. Can you scroll to the bottom?
Yes.
Below that. Where is the abstract? Is it at the top? Maybe it's go up to the top.
It's the technical narrative. The abstract is in the technical narrative.
Okay, it's moved. Sorry.
Yeah.
Technical narrative.
It's the technical narrative, and we can correct, if it says character, we'll correct that error because it is intended to be word limit, but it's in the technical narrative. I don't know, Brenda, if you have that, if you can pull that up. But if you review the technical narrative, what's asked to be included in the abstract is written there.
So do you see this? It's provide a description of the proposed program and how it will be implemented, the goals and objectives, and how it aligns to the focal areas of One Fairfax policy. And so we will change this so it's words.
And what we're asking you for is a very brief description of this. We don't need 3 paragraphs or 4 paragraphs. And the reason for this program abstract is to help the SAC, when they're evaluating your responses, have an idea of exactly what your program is and the plans for the program, instead of having to comb through the whole proposal or flip back to the Form 2 to figure out what category you checked off and all that. This will just create a brief picture of your overall program and help them as they go through with the responses below to score your proposal.
You know, actually, now that I'm looking at this, I think we might actually mean characters. So whatever we put in the addendum will be the final answer. So don't rely on what we're saying right now, because I think I need to count how many characters are in each word before we answer definitively.
Thank you, Karen. The next question asks, is it okay that our references are our program Fairfax agency partners?
So I'm assuming Arlene is asking if you have a contract with the county and it's an agency, if you could use that as a reference. I'm going to say yes. If you have a contract with the county outside of the CCFP contract that you were awarded or, whatever, yes. However, if you're asking for a reference based on anything outside of having a contract, because we will have to ask them, did you meet your deliverables on that contract? How was your performance? Did you spend your money? Whatever, because this is really a reference check, right? So if that's what this is, what you're asking, Arlene, then yes, you can use another agency within the county as your reference, because specifically you have done work for this agency through a contract. Other than that, no, because we're not looking for support. We're not looking for recommendations from any county agency. We're looking only for references based on work that has been done through contracts.
And we do not accept letters of support. That is different, and that's not part of the evaluation criteria for the CCFP. So it would not get reviewed, and there's no place to put that, a letter of support, which is different.
Okay, thank you. The next question asks, is it possible to get templates of the quarterly CSBG reports to prepare for that data collection?
No, because you're not at this point, you're not even sure if you're getting CSBG dollars. So what would be the point of providing you with that information? That those forms will be given to you if you receive CSBG dollars. And I want to make it clear to individuals on this call how this process works. Once you have been awarded a contract by the SAC, based on the type of programs, services that you're providing, if those services aligns with the categories for the CSBG dollars, and you said you would accept federal funds, your program will be forwarded to the Community Action Advisory Board. This committee is the one that makes the selection of programs that will receive those dollars. So you can see that there are two parts to this process. So there is no point in giving anyone CSBG forms, because first, you have to receive a contract award, and second, you have to be awarded federal dollars based on the fact that you said, yes, you would accept it by the cap. So the answer is no.
Thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, is the transcript downloadable? I think they're referring to this chat, but not sure.
Not sure. We'll find out and we'll let you know. But this conference is being recorded and will be posted on the CCFP website within 10 business days, and all the questions will be there. So you can always go back and review.
Okay, thank you. And then someone's asked, please repeat requirements for program references or drop the link of the page you showed earlier. Do we know the page to which they're referring?
The Form 2, that's the only
okay.
document that refers to the references. It's on the very first page at the bottom of the Form 2.
Thank you. And the next question asks, is question 1 on the outcome section the actual form itself? We don't have to repeat outcome statement as part of the narrative.
Marla, do you want to answer that?
We could do that in the addendum.
Addendum? Okay.
Great.
So we'll address that through the addendum.
Okay, thank you. The next question asks, will you share the info you provided via email?
All the questions that have been asked and answered, and even those that were not answered, will be on the addendum. So everyone who has signed up in Bonfire will receive these questions and answers. And once again, the conference will be on the CCFP website along with the slide decks. The slide deck will also be in Bonfire.
Thank you. And someone's asked, sorry if you mentioned this, but when will addendum 2 be sent?
Addendum 2 will be sent in the coming days. We have to compile all these questions, find all the answers, and then also collect the ones that are coming in. Because while we're talking, I'm receiving questions as well. So it will take us a few days because this is a collaborative approach to answering the questions. You will be notified in Bonfire once it's there.
All right, thank you. The next question asks, we are proposing for various programs, one of which opens up a few months after the fiscal year has started. We need to hire the staff, train them, and prepare the program the months prior to it being open. Can we request funds for these purposes that will take place before the program is fully operational?
Yes, and I say yes with a pause because this is what happens. Your contract starts July 1st. However, it takes a little while for all the processes in terms of financial processes to be in place. Depending on the type of funding you receive, if you're receiving the county's general funds, you will get a quarterly advance. So you would receive a check come July, sometime in July. I can't tell you sitting from here, right? And that would help you with your startup cost to pay your staff or whatever, if you're a new program. Okay, so that's the only way you would get that fund. So even if you're starting your program a few months after, you would get those funds in July to help you. And it's only a quarter of the total award. You get a quarter every quarter.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. The next question asks, MOUs with agencies for reference count.
No.
Okay. The next question asks, if a prior CCFP contract is used as a reference, who do we name as the person of contact?
Your contracts.
Yeah,
Go
your
ahead,
contract
Karen.
analyst. You would put down the contract analyst at DPMN who handles your contract.
Okay, thank you. The next question asks, could you confirm the area eligible for funding with this program, all 4 regions presented on the regional map without exclusions?
Yes, I think the map is all of Fairfax County, just divided into the 4 regions. And so you are to serve, your client population should reside in one area or more of Fairfax County. It can also be the city of Fairfax, Herndon, Reston, or Herndon, Clifton, and Vienna.
Thank you, Karen. Earlier, someone asked about the transcript being available. They clarified that they were referring to the transcript of the presenter comments, not the chat. So Michelle, I don't know if you want to reiterate that the recording will be available and where.
Yes, it will be available on the funding pool website 10 days after this conference. And the slide decks will also be on the funding pool website. That will go up pretty quickly. It takes a while for the team to get the recording up. The slide decks will also be in Bonfire, and that one will be there pretty quickly.
Okay. As you were speaking, they clarified that they need to read it, not hear it. Is there any way?
We will check with our IT team, because I think that's more an accommodation request. And so we will check with our IT team. For the person that's asking that question, if you can provide us with your email so that we can get back to you, that would be very helpful. If you could just drop your email information in the chat box, that would be very helpful.
Thank you. The next question asks, based on the amendments to the RFP, by chance, can the deadline be moved? I need to rejig draft technical narrative. I'm not sure. You can speak to the deadline, maybe.
Where's that question? Say that again.
It's near the end of the chat from Arlene.
I think she's asking if the December 8th deadline can be pushed back. And that's no, unfortunately we can't. There's a lot of,
there's a lot of moving parts for us,
and
that includes the holidays too. So no, we can't move it. As a matter of fact, it's late this year, because if many of you who have had contracts or been through this process know, it's usually like the 2nd or the 3rd of December. So no.
Okay, thank you. And then someone asked, as you were speaking, if you want to reiterate, Michelle, about when can we expect the addendum?
The addendum will be released in the coming days. We will try our best to get it out to you. We understand you guys need the answers to these questions to do your response to the proposal, but this is a team effort. I can't answer all the questions by myself, neither can Marla. So it's a collaborative effort. It takes time for the team to work together to get you all the answers. So please give us a few more days probably 5 or 6 business days, and we will get the addendum out, which will include all these questions and responses and any other questions that will come in after today's pre-proposal conference. And once again, we will send you a notification in Bonfire that an addenda has been released.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. That is the end of the chat transcript as I have it. So as Michelle and Karen have stated, I think any further questions can be emailed or sent through Bonfire.
So thank you everyone for attending. We look forward to hearing from many or all of you, and keep your questions coming. We will get you your responses. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.